when you talk about wrestling, you always seem to be very aware and educated in the history of wrestling. How has that benefited you in your career?
You have reference points, you have things to go back to, things to compare yourself to. I came up watching wrestling with my great grandmother Sundays, sitting Indian style on the floor watching wrestling. And to me, it was always the highest form of art, the highest form of anything that I had ever seen. I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with the circumstance that every match was bringing, every conflict. Why are these guys wrestling? Who are they? Why? What does it mean if one person wins versus the other? And then to see it kind of unravel week after week, that to me is the connecting story that never stops. There's no off season, you never take time off. So it's a continual running story for however long wrestling exists. So a wrestler that's wrestling 20 years, in theory, should have a 20-year story that we can follow. Mm-hmm. So I've always wanted to be that and carry myself in that way, in that manner. And that's built with history. You have to create history, be a part of history, see history, so that you can kind of booknote your successes. That's how I've always looked at success. I feel like it's kind of like a ladder in a way. It has to be bookmarked. It has to be noted. There are checkpoints. Here, this date, that date, this date, that date. Next thing you know, you have a graph, you have a chart, and it's easy to relate to people. And now it's like, oh, you did do, oh. It's like kind of creating your own resume, every day of your life. That's how I always look at it.
So you see it as a way for people to also be aware of the career that you're building for yourself, and then you yourself become part of that history. Mm-hmm. What were some historical events that really influenced you in your career?
Well, there's moments, there's matches. One that I like to go back to was 2015. It was Beyond Wrestling, who are off to the races now with what they're doing with IWTV. But it was there in 2015, an event called Powder Keg, where I wrestled Timothy Thatcher. That was a learning experience. I don't even have to keep rewatching the match because I can replay it in my head, in terms of where I was positioning and how much I learned from that. Somebody who I looked up to in terms of how well-traveled he is, how well-versed he is in mat wrestling, submission. These are all things that I study. So to have had the opportunity to wrestle him and to have learned all the things that I did just by wrestling him. I'm not talking about having conversation and him. I'm talking about just by being in there with him, the responsiveness, the way I needed to adapt, the awareness that I needed to have. That's how I always wanted my matches to feel and to be like. I always wanted it to feel very authentic, very genuine, very, this person is in danger, or this person, every moment is making you is making you have to pay attention. You can't look away because you might miss something. So his type of style is one of those things, and that's an event that I'll always keep it in my head as someone who really helped open another door for me in terms of, you can look at things like this, you can approach things like that. You do it this way, you can go farther. Tremendous experience.